What's your reaction to what's happened today?
Well, firstly, on the human level, I mean, I do feel for Humza today. I mean, I've been there. I've done a resignation speech as First Minister. And whether you're First Minister or Prime Minister, most people, when they aspire in politics to get the top job, and therefore, despite all the trials, tribulations, frustrations, and everything else that goes on, it's a great wrench when you leave it. And that was evident in Humza Yousaf's speech today. So today I feel for Humza and his family, and I wish them well for the future.
I was quite struck by something that a source close to Humza Yousaf said to our Scotland correspondent Conor Gillies when there was a suggestion that your party, the Alba Party, could prop up the SNP government with your one MSP. They said that would be like doing a deal with the devil. I mean, what does it say that Humza Yousaf would prefer to collapse his own leadership rather than to do a deal with you?
Well, what it says is it's not true, because I saw that quote as well. But at 7 o'clock this morning, Humza Yousaf phoned Ash Regan about the proposals she'd put into him yesterday, complimented her on the proposals being very reasonable, and told her he was still trying to stay in his post. That was after, apparently, I was the devil. So I'm not certain that everybody around Humza Yousaf was acting in his best interests. And if I could give you another piece of evidence for that, this morning, the Times newspaper, full page, front page in Scotland, said Humza Yousaf is to resign. That proved to be accurate. And said that John Swinney was going to take his place. That might well be accurate. Now, I'm very puzzled by this, because that was so, next to the First Minister, close to the First Minister. And yet, at 7 o'clock this morning, Humza Yousaf was phoning Ash Regan, saying that the proposals she had made were very reasonable and trying to stay in his job. Now, these two things do not fit together. And I'm just wondering if the team around Humza Yousaf, that all of them were acting in his best interests, because to me, these two pieces of factual information don't fit together.
So, right, let's just be really clear about what you're saying, because you're making some pretty, I think, you're making some accusations here or inferring some accusations here. Are you saying that you really believe that people in the SNP, the old guard, as I think you've called them perhaps today, people around Humza Yousaf, were trying to get him out and John Swinney in? Is that what you think?
Well, I'm putting together two facts. The front page, which is there for all to see, in the Times newspaper today, which says that Humza Yousaf was going to resign on sources very close to the First Minister, friends of the First Minister, and that John Swinney was to be placed in as interim First Minister. Now, nobody had spoken about John as a candidate up until I saw that story. Now, I'm trying to match that together with the phone call I know took place this morning, because I was told, I think it was 7:30, around 7 o'clock, because I was told shortly thereafterwards, where Humza Yousaf told Ash Regan that he was trying still to stay in the job, and said that the proposals the Alba Party made to him were very reasonable, as indeed they were. They were about independence, about protection of women and children in Scotland, and also about moving on to a people's agenda of housing, education, health, and above all, jobs. All of things which I know that Humza Yousaf would like to do. And I'm trying to match these two things together. One, that story was briefed last night, but at 7:30 this morning, Humza Yousaf told Ash Regan that our proposals were very reasonable, and he was trying to.
What you think there was effectively like a kind of backdoor coup by the men in grey suits?
Well, I'm saying that somebody briefed the Times newspaper. It certainly wasn't me. It had to be somebody very close to Humza Yousaf. I mean, look, in desperate political situations, right, people get together. The person who's behind the eight ball, in this case, Humza Yousaf. I mean, these are dramatic times. Nobody gets very much sleep. There's always a chance of mistakes. But look, Humza's an honest guy, right? He used to work for me. He's an absolute honest guy. He wouldn't mislead. There was no reason to mislead Ash Regan this morning. No reason whatsoever. So as at 7:30 this morning, he was trying to stay in his job. He thought the Alba proposals were reasonable. But last night, someone close to him had briefed that to the Times newspaper.
You say Humza Yousaf is an honest guy. Do you think John Swinney's an honest guy? He's the favourite.
Well, I mean, John was my finance secretary. I've got no animus against John Swinney. He was an excellent finance secretary. at that time. He's an overwhelming favourite to take the job now. The one thing, and I'm not going to pass verdict on who should be SNP leader, except to say this, that no contest, a coronation, a shoo-in, is not necessarily a good thing, because this will be the second time that the baton, to use Humza's phrase, has been handed on, from Nicola Sturgeon to Humza Yousaf and now to another candidate. If that person has no electoral mandate from the people and also has no mandate from the SNP members, it'll leave them in a very weak position. And I would think that even right now, the Tory and Labour leaders in Scotland are dusting down the quotes from the SNP in Westminster about what they said when the Tory party changed the Prime Minister 3 times. Now this would be the SNP changing the First Minister 3 times, and possibly without even a mandate from the party membership, never mind a mandate from the Scottish people.
Now, I have to say, some people listening to you are probably, watching TV, wanting to throw things at the screen right now. Some people in the SNP see you as part of the, part of the reasons, I guess, for the division. They might be thinking, here he is, at it again, throwing mud at the SNP, making these kind of implications around all this kind of innuendo around Humza Yousaf and those around him. He's at it again, divisive problems that are not helping the independence cause. What would you say to them?
Well, 2 things. My political opponents say many things about me, but I don't think anybody's ever doubted my dedication to the independence cause. The quarrel I have with the Scottish National Party at the present moment, and what Ash Regan was trying to partially fix in the proposal she was making to Humza Yousaf, is that they haven't seen independence as an immediate priority for some considerable time. And the reason for the formation of Alba and the reason for the Alba campaign is to try and get independence back up the political agenda in Scotland. So whatever else might be said about by whoever else, then they're not going to doubt my commitment to Scottish independence. And as for the stuff about what happened in the Time newspaper and what happened this morning, a phone call, I'm just putting together 2 facts. I'm not making it up. Both of these things are true, and people can draw their own conclusions. I would have much preferred that we didn't allow a situation where a Tory motion of no confidence was to drum a nationalist First Minister out of office. And I think those who were prepared to support that, not so much the Tory and Labour side, because they've been the better together coalition for many years in Scotland, but the Green Party, for example, in a fit of pique, really have got some questions to answer about their commitment to Scottish independence, which is why the Alba tried to be so constructive through this process, offering Humza Yousaf a reasonable formulation, which would have allowed him certainly to survive the votes of confidence if he'd been able to accept them. Now, for whatever reason, he found he wasn't able to, but it certainly wasn't the content of the proposals, because, as I said, he himself described them as very reasonable.